Good morning. This is Glasgow Rangers Nation. I'm Owen James, and this is all your latest Rangers news right here on the independent channel. The channel is not beholden to anybody. The channel that is very much fan-driven. The channel that doesn't rely on anyone else, that just gets on, does its job, gets through it, guys, and doesn't give a fuck what anyone else thinks. Well, if you know what, we don't even charge you either. We are free at point of use. We do not charge you for content. We do not hide our content behind paywalls. We do not charge you £2.50 a month or £5 a month to access any of the videos. It's all free. All we ask of you is that you subscribe, you ring the bell, you watch the videos. If you want to become a member, you become a member for 99p. You can always use the super thanks button below the video to donate some money during a normal video. Or if you're watching a podcast that is live, where unlike a lot of other podcast hosts, I actually value what my watchers say and read out their comments and treat it as a bit of a conversation, like some lads down the pub talking Rangers. You can donate through super chats and super stickers. Right, let's move on. What we're going to talk about this morning, you know what? We're still in pre-season mode. We are building up towards that Panathinaikos game. 4 days, guys. 4 days and counting. That's nothing, is it? You know, literally, what, 96 hours? Jesus, it's getting closer. We're going to talk Rascan and a possible exit for him. You know what? I think I cursed it yesterday when I said it had all gone quiet on the Rascan front and no one seemed to be linked with him. And the Villa link had died off. The Wolves link had died off. The Porto link had died off. I think I jinxed it. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The latest club from the continent of the country of Spain that are interested in him, La Liga, is calling the wee Belgian. Also, a possible link to Mohamed Diamande as well from Turkey. Now, I know that any Turkish link has to be treated with a little bit of a pinch of salt, so we're going to talk that bit. We're going to talk Metinho, the Brazilian Pogba, as well. And we're going to talk Coady. Again, Coady, it's the transfer saga. I mean, look, I'll be honest with you, don't even know whether we're truly interested in him, but we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with the Coady situation. Well, let's start off with the best midfielder in Scotland, Nicholas Rascan. I don't think there's anybody can argue with that. You know what? They may bring up Callum McGregor, they may bring up Rio Hatate, but neither of those are fit to lace this little man's boots. Nicholas Rascan, a guy who has starred on the international stage for Belgium, has played alongside people like Yuri Tielemans, Kevin De Bruyne, and outshone them to some extent. So I'll be honest with you, this is probably one of the best midfielders around at this moment in time, and I'm not surprised that clubs are interested in trying to secure his services and get him away from Rangers. He is obviously a very valuable asset. You know, he really does fit in with that whole kind of, you know, he does fit in, doesn't he, with that kind of, you know, superstar talented midfielder that a lot of clubs are looking for. Now, who are the latest club that are in from him? Well, it's Real Betis from Sevilla in Spain. Betis obviously are looking to replace some midfielders. Now, Betis have lost two key midfielders over this summer transfer period already. And the Spanish club, described by the Glasgow Times and a couple of other newspapers as the Spanish giants, I really wouldn't put, no disrespect to Real Betis, but I certainly wouldn't call them Spanish giants. I think if you're talking Spanish giants, you're talking Barcelona, you're talking Atletico Madrid, and unfortunately you are talking Real Madrid as well. You certainly are not talking Real Betis. They are a big club in Spain, but not, I wouldn't say, a giant club. Now, according to Spanish media, and again, I know with any media, with any speculation, you get that little pinch of salt and you sprinkle it on top because we know media love a bit of clickbait. They are saying that they're going to test Rangers' resolve to hang on to Nicholas Rascan, and that Russell Martin will face a fight going forward to hang on to his Belgian star midfield player. You know, this is a player who realistically could genuinely command a big fee for the club, and kind of a summer changing fee. You know, if you get in what Nicholas Rascan is truly worth, which you're probably looking at between 20 and 25 million pounds, you're looking at someone who could really give you the opportunity to go out and spend on two, three really good players and you know, really push this team on to the next level. Now, Rascan obviously is a top player. Russell Martin said that. He talked the other day, didn't he? He said how, you know, less is more, and, you know, surrounding him with better players this year, as he's done with the likes, obviously, of Joe Rothwell, for example, Thelo Asgard, Judy Gassama, etc., etc. You know, you're going to get a better Rascan. You know, that's what Russell Martin is hoping for. You know, and Martin, I think will use him in a slightly different way to past managers. I don't think he'll use him as a 6. I think he'll use him more as an 8. I think Rothwell will play more in that 6 role and give Rascan a bit of license to move forward. Now, Spanish media outlet Mucho Deporte, you know, Spain is very famous for its, excuse me, its football only and its sport only papers, claims that Betis will be the first club from Spain to test the resolve of Rangers. Now, the Betis manager is Manuel Pellegrini, the former Manchester City manager. And he apparently wants replacements for Johnny Cardozo and William Carvalho, who are both leaving Betis this summer. Both players are, you know, really, really good really talented players who helped Betis reach the Conference League final, where they were unfortunately defeated by Chelsea. I must say, I was hoping that Betis would smash Chelsea on that night. Now, Carvalho hasn't actually left the club yet. Cardoso has. Carvalho actually won the 2016 Euros with Portugal and the Nations League as well. That's the talent of that guy. But they want Rascan as a potential replacement and are ready to go in with that substantial bid. And, you know, rumours of a £20 million bid are very much on the table. Now, Rangers have already kind of said that the price is, the starting price at least, is 20 million for the player. Now, I can't help but feel that, you know, if a club like Betis come in and offer the going rate, you know, and what you've got to remember is, I suppose, in La Liga, there are teams that are far more capable of meeting the asking price. You know, the La Liga is, you know, with some exceptions, obviously, like likes of Valencia, for example, there are a lot of more cash-rich clubs there that can afford to splash some cash. You know, you've looked at, obviously, Girona over recent years, who are part of the City group, the Atleti, obviously Real, Barca, etc., etc. So Betis, obviously, are looking to splash the cash they get from Cardoso and Carvalho, and obviously that looks like it could be Rascan. I mean, personally, I hope that we turn the bid down. We hang on to him for at least another season. I genuinely believe that if he stays for another year, he performs as he did last season, where he was phenomenal, the player of the season, and then has a good World Cup as well, or whatever it is coming up. I don't know if it's a World Cup or whatever it is coming up. You know, 2026, I think he could be, you know, be worth even more money than we're talking at the moment. We're talking perhaps a 25, 30 million pound footballer in Nicolas Rascan. I mean, he really is that talented. But I think, you know, honestly, if a 20 million pound bid comes in, the club are going to listen, because they've got to. That's the trading model. That they are, you know, genuinely convinced by this trading model. They genuinely want to bring in this trading model. So for me, you know, Rascan, I think, could well be on his way. Now, I don't think he will be allowed to leave before the Champions League qualifiers are completed against Panathinaikos. I think any move would come post that. Certainly, I mean, obviously it wouldn't impact Betis because Betis is not in the Champions League. So, look, I think it's one to look at. It's a potential there. You know, it really genuinely is that he could depart. It looks like Betis are the latest team who will come in and try and get hold of him. So, slightly concerning times. Right. Let's talk about another potential departure. This time, Mohamed Diamande. Look, Mo Diamande is a player who I think gets mixed reviews from the Rangers fans. There are Rangers fans who absolutely love Diamande, who think that he's absolutely first class, that, you know, that genuinely think that he's a top player, and I think he is a very good footballer. I think, you know, when he gets time on the ball, when he gets a bit more chance to go out there and play, when he's actually played in a position that suits him, he looks a top footballer. I mean, in Europe especially, he looks a player who buys time, who plays good passes, who works well off Rascan, who links well, who can do everything. And I think Mo is a good footballer. I really do. I think there's times, obviously, in Scotland where he does go missing. I mean, I honestly do. You know, there's times where he struggles to cope with the physicality or perhaps the speed of the game. And I think that's all part of that adaptation. I think a bit more strength would certainly help Diamande moving forward. But, you know, certainly he is a very, very good footballer. And I think, you know, when Rangers bought him from Norgesland, it was very much with this player trading model in kind of mind. You know, this is the sort of player who, you know, you buy for a relatively small fee and then you go on to get an awful lot of money in for. Now, Turkish club Besiktas are reportedly very interested in trying to prize Mohamed Diamande away from Rangers. Rangers are unsurprisingly not very anxious to sell Diamande, especially obviously given the interest in Nicolas Rascan. Certainly, I feel they wouldn't want to lose both players. They wouldn't want to lose Diamande and Rascan in the same window. I think that would be a massive, massive error. Now, according to reports, Rangers value Diamande between 15 and 20 million pounds. So, it remains to be seen whether Besiktas are willing to go to that steep figure. Certainly, reports indicated that they were only initially bidding somewhere between 7 and 8 million pounds for the player, which certainly would not be enough to prize him away from Rangers. Look, I think Dio is a good footballer. I like Dio. I think the guy's got a very good head on his shoulders. I think he's a very intelligent player. I think his passing is good. I think he's potentially, could add to his game as he develops and gets older. That goal scoring element we've already seen, shots from distance, that have led to goals. So I think he's certainly got that in his locker. But again, that's something that he does need to continue to work on and to continue to develop. And I'm sure will come over time. But the Besiktas coming in. Look, I realistically don't see Rangers selling both of Rascan and Diamande. I think that you would see perhaps one leave. If anything, there's only going to be one go out. There certainly won't be two heading out in this window. Although then again, I suppose if a 20 million bid came in for Rascan and some club offered 15 million for Diamande, that's 35 million pounds coming into the club, which could be reinvested in the playing squad, which I think would be awfully tempting for any board and any owner, no matter where you are in the world. So look, interesting times certainly, and I certainly hope that Dio does not move on and at least spends this next season with the club. Right, let's touch on Matinho. Remember Matinho? Yes, the guy who was described as the Brazilian Pogba, a player who, was likened to Paul Pogba, hopefully without all the misdemeanors of Paul Pogba, although Paul Pogba is back in football apparently with Monaco. Now, Rangers have already signed 7 new players this summer, and it is said that Rangers are not going to stop at just 7 players. There will be further arrivals. Russell Martin's already kind of said that himself. They're certainly obviously trying to build a squad, not just for the Champions League qualifier on the 22nd, but also I think going forward into the SPL this season to be an awful lot more competitive than they have been previously. Now, one possible target that was spoken about, a short time ago was Matinho, the Brazilian midfield player who had spent time at Bâle. I think he'd been on loan last season. He looks a very good player, Matinho, and I know a lot of you out there really liked that idea of signing someone like Matinho. But look, it looks like Rangers have missed out on Matinho. Now, what is absolutely gutting, I think, on this transfer is the fact that he cost only £4 million in the transfer deal. Where's he gone? Well, he's gone to French side Troyes in a deal worth around £4 million. That's not great, is it? Not brilliant at all, really. That is gutting. It really is gutting. Really is disappointing. He's obviously spent time at Bâle where he was very impressive. Bâle, obviously a club that have done well in Europe in the past, but apparently, not Bâle. Actually, no, he's gone to, where's he gone? Actually, he hasn't gone to Troyes. I'm just doing a bit of research now. Sorry, guys. He's gone to play in. He's contracted with Troyes. That's right. He cost Troyes £4 million. Sorry, my mistake. I made a mistake on that. I do apologise. He spent the second half of the loan, or second half of last season, on loan at Bâle in the Swiss Super League, playing alongside the likes of Shedran Shaqiri and former Celtic striker Ayete. He made 14 appearances for them in all competitions and impressed their manager Ludovic Magnin. According to Fabrizio Romano, he has now chosen to continue his career with the Swiss side, Bâle. So he's gone to play in the Swiss Super League. Now, look, Bâle are a very good club, don't get me wrong. They're a club that have done well in Europe in the past. And I'm not saying, that they're anything inferior to Rangers. I'm not that arrogant. I'm not that sort of person. But this looks like we've missed out on him. It really does. I mean, look, I suppose that would depend on whether we were ever really interested in him. And I think, obviously, given the fact that we've shopped almost exclusively in England this summer, I do kind of doubt whether there's any validity in this story, whether we were actually genuinely interested in him. But he has obviously moved to FC Basel in Switzerland on a permanent basis after that loan spell. No word as yet as to what the fee is, but look, it's disappointing, obviously. I think Matinho would have been a very, very good signing. I think he could have been someone who would have really come in and made a big difference to this team. I think, he's a top midfield player. He's a box-to-box midfield player. He's got a good range of passing. He likes a shot. He's not afraid to have a go. I kind of worry to some extent. Look, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm wrong. I'm not doubting Kevin Thelwell. I'm not doubting Dan Purdy. I'm sure both of them are absolutely superb at their job, at looking at players, at finding the right player for the club, at bringing those players in. And I'm sure that the players we've brought in, the Gigas, the Asgards, even though he's injured, the Fernandezes, the Rothwells, the Kasamas. I mean, the Kasama deal does excite me a lot. I'm sure that these players were going to be very, very good footballers for Rangers. But my one worry, and it is only a slight one, is that we do seem to be shopping extensively in the same market. That we're kind of putting our eggs all in one basket. If you look around the Premier League, to a greater extent, rather than the SPL, where there's only really Celtic to kind of compare us to. You can't compare us with Hearts and Hibs and Aberdeen. No disrespect to them, but they're just not on the same level as we are. You look in the Premier League, and you look at even clubs, nearly promoted clubs like Leeds and Sunderland. They shop in a variety of different markets. They don't just shop in one market. They go, all across Europe to buy their players. Whereas we are kind of, in a way, and like I said, I'm not doubting it. I'm not slagging it off. I'm not saying these players are going to be duffers. I'm merely asking the question: are we placing our eggs all in one basket? Are we kind of, relying solely on one type of player rather than shopping all across Europe to find the best possible talent for the best possible price? Certainly missing out on someone like Matinho, who is, I think, a very, very talented footballer. And I think could have been a real quality part of our midfield, especially, obviously, to spell Nicolas Rascan, and obviously to possibly replace him if he does make that move to Betis. Like I said, that is a worry for me, that we've just shopped in one market. I'm hoping that other signings that come in, that we are looking at other leagues, we are looking at other teams, we are looking at other areas, not just England. Nothing against England. The EFL Championship is one of the strongest leagues in Europe. I would put the EFL Championship as stronger than the SPL, as stronger than La Liga, as stronger than the Belgian League, as stronger than the Dutch League. And yes, I accept there are teams in the Dutch League, there are teams within the French League who would walk the Championship. Of course they would. I'm not saying they wouldn't, but the level of competition is greater. You get past PSG and Marseille in the French League, there's very little competition. You get past, Union Saint-Gilloise, Genk, Brugge, Anderlecht in Belgium, there's very little competition. You get past Ajax, Feyenoord and PSV in Holland, there's very little competition. So, and you get past Celtic and Rangers, there's virtually no competition in Scotland. So that's what I'm kind of saying there. The EFL Championship is a very high quality league, and don't get me wrong, and it is very intense. Anybody's ever watched Championship football, you'll see the speed it's played at, you'll see the aggression it's played with, and you'll see how difficult as a league it is to get out of, with the aim of everyone aiming really to try and get themselves to the promised land of the Premier League. So, look, I'm not saying that signings from the EFL are going to be a disaster, but I am kind of raising that question. Is it wise to put all your eggs in one basket, to solely sign your players from one area? And someone like Matinho, I think, could have obviously, made a big difference at Rangers. He would have been a player who could have really added something to the club. But, look, it's over now. He's going to Basel. We've got to deal with it. He's gone. So there you go, just an update. I know I don't really like talking about players who've gone elsewhere, but I just wanted to kind of update that one because I know a lot of you had talked about Matinho as a possible signing and, liked him as a possible player. And he had been linked with Rangers. And, as I said, we don't know how much truth there was in that story. Okay, so let's talk a little bit of Conor Coady now. Conor Coady, look, again, it's hearsay, it's reports, it's rumour, it's counter-rumour. We understand that. I understand that. Everyone understands that. But we are in pre-season. We are in that transfer silly season. We are in that time when people talk about transfer stories. That's what they talk about. That's what's interesting. There's no real football going on at the moment. So that's what we talk about. There hasn't been any real football since the end of last season. I certainly don't include the Club World Cup in that. That wasn't a real tournament. That was a joke. It really genuinely was. Won by the final was a joke. It was won by one of the weakest teams in the competition. It really genuinely was a team that won't even finish in the top 3 in the Premier League. So, I genuinely don't get it. But there we go. Anyway, let's talk about Conor Coady. So Conor Coady apparently asked not to fly out with, of course, this is according to reports in Leicester media, not to fly out with Leicester on their pre-season tour to Austria. However, that request was refused, and he did have to fly out. Now, it's thought that Conor Coady really does fancy a move to Rangers, that he sees it as a great opportunity. He doesn't want to play in the Championship. He wants to better himself. He wants to play in Europe. He wants to play for a really big club. And he sees that a move away from Leicester and going to Rangers as the best possible option for that. Like I said, however, Leicester refused that and have taken him on their pre-season tour to Austria. Now, according to reports in Leicester evening papers and Leicester papers around here, which have obviously then gone into the English media, is that Leicester are unwilling to allow him to go on 2 accounts. One, as I've mentioned on previous videos, is until new manager Martí Cifuentes fully assesses his squad and assesses who he wants to keep and who he wants to go. Second point being that Leicester are unwilling to let Conor Coady go until they have a replacement lined up, and at the moment there is no replacement. Now, the big worry with that is that if he obviously, that Leicester don't allow him to leave before next Monday, when we can add the final 2 members of our squad to the actual Champions League squad, then obviously Coady wouldn't be able to play. Would he be signed? He wouldn't be able to play in that Champions League qualifier against Panathinaikos in either of the legs, and wouldn't be able to play Champions League football until and if we qualified for the next qualifying round, which obviously is a worry, especially obviously given the fact that, that we do seem to want to add a bit more experience to that centre half. Now, we do have John Souttar fit. That's a positive. We've got Nasa Giga. We've got Manny Fernandez. Now, some people could argue, got enough to get by with Giga, Fernandez and Souttar. But, you can't help but feel that someone who is a leader, someone who has experience, someone who's a real leader, a defender who would come in and be an actual proper leader at the back and a proper leader of men, unlike some others, would be very useful for Rangers. But it looks like, that deal is severely delayed if it ever happens. It could well collapse. It could well be a situation that Rangers look at it and go, you know what, forget it. Just forget it. We're not prepared to wait. We're not prepared to go any further on this. Just at the end of the day, that's it. It's done. We don't want it anymore. Leicester, forget it. And, Leicester miss out on a transfer fee because he's still under contract. And to some extent, we miss out on a good experienced footballer, which I think would add something to this squad and would certainly fit Russell Martin's system. But that's where we're up to with Conor Coady. I know there's a lot of people interested in where we are on that Conor Coady deal. But look, it's fascinating times, isn't it? Genuinely fascinating times with possible arrivals, possible departures, big money. You know what? It's also nice as well that, look, I don't want any of these players to leave. Don't get me wrong. I don't want Hamza to leave. I don't want Rascan to leave. I don't want Dio to leave the club. There's certain players I'll be happy to see leave the club. Proper, for example, Davis, Dessers, just for examples. But, it's exciting, isn't it, though, that the players, the clubs that are finally bidding, big amounts for our players, and we're kind of getting back to, having these top talented players who are worth 15, 20, 25 million pounds. It's not just them across the city that can have those players and can raise that amount of money. Look, as you know, I despise that the other half of the city, cannot stand them. genuinely cannot stand them. But you've got to give them credit for the fact that they've got the transfer trading model working perfectly. They take in millions and millions from it. You've only got to look at the sales of Jota and O'Reilly, for example, to see how much money they've generated on top of their Champions League money. That's obviously enabled them to go and sign players and obviously win trophies. So look, it is what it is, guys. But if we can get to that point where we are selling players for 15, 20, 25 million pounds and generating big amounts of cash that then come into the club and are reinvested in the playing squad, it's only for the positive for Rangers and is only going to help us move forward in the long run. Well, guys, let me know what you think of the stories we've covered in today's video. Obviously, drop me a comment. If you've enjoyed it, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. We will be back very soon with another video. As always, guys, this is just, I love doing this. One day, hopefully, please God, let us be able to do this full time rather than having to go out to work. We can do more lives, we can do more videos, we can get more content out there, we can try more different new things, we can get you involved more often. But we've got to get to at least 10k and be making a certain amount of money per month to be able to get out of it and get out of the job that I'm in. Guys, thank you for watching. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, my Rangers family. I'll catch you on the next one.